guys, it's Jamie bringing you a special episode of Recovery Inspired Hope. Today, I'm really excited to have Dave Breedlove on with me, and we are doing a special video series today called the Walton County Recovery Initiative. And we are especially spotlighting Walton County for their amazing efforts in the recovery community and to find out how we can all work together as a team with all the different aspects of the community, different people, judicial systems, just all the parts of the community, how we can work together to find recovery to be the solution that will help in the criminal justice system. So, Dave, I'm so thankful that you are coming on, and I want to thank you in advance for your transparency in this interview. And it really means a lot to us. Dave is also a fellow person in long-term recovery. Dave, would you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you for having me on. My name is David Breedlove, and I am a person of long-term recovery. When I was early on in my really in middle school, but in high school, my drinking and other things were very prominent. It pretty much consumed my days. And I grew up in just your average middle class neighborhood in Gwinnett County. There was nothing lavish about it, but it wasn't a shanty either. I mean, it was just a nice family, mom, dad, two sisters. And but I was different. I discovered alcohol when I was 11. I started drinking regularly when I was 13, and this became my everyday thing. I drank every single day. I would get up, have a drink, go to school, come home, do some homework, drink some more, go to work, come home, and drink until I passed out. And this was from the time I was 16 or so. That was pretty much my life until I was in my early 20s. When I was 24, my life changed. There were a bunch of things that happened up to that point, but I would like to say there was a one single instance that completely turned my life around. I was in a car accident or something like that. Nothing like that. It wasn't anything like that. I was attending a church of all things in South DeKalb County, and this church, it was a very large church, and they catered to the lesser of us. They treated rape victims, incest. They took in everybody, and these were the people that they ministered to daily. This wasn't like some special thing. They did this every single day. Well, here comes David Breedlove, the alcoholic, obviously, and show up on their doorstep. And I'd been there 6 months, I guess. And they really tried. But the deacon pulled me into his office one day. This was in September. And he said, we can't help you. We've tried. There's nothing that we can do. And I wasn't surprised. I wasn't really looking for help, I guess. But he ended up taking me to a meeting over in Clarkston, and that was on September 11th of all days of 1991. And I went to my very first AA meeting that night, and picked up a white chip, and that was 29 and a half years ago, and I haven't had a drink since.
Can I ask you, did he stay with you at that meeting?
Actually, he didn't. He left me out front. He did come back and pick me up, but excuse me, he left me out front, and there were a bunch of guys. This meeting was not small. This was a very large meeting that ended up becoming my home group for the first 5 years of my recovery. And there were 400 members at that location.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's a
huge.
huge meeting.
It
That
was
must have been
huge.
so fun, that
Yeah,
fellowship and
it was this really big room, and off of the big room were 10 little rooms all around it. And then we'd start the meeting, it was like 10, 15 minutes, and then we break up into smaller groups. And every room was filled, like almost every single night. They had a meeting every 2 hours from 6 a.m. until midnight, and they did this every single day. It was an amazing place. I owe every bit of my sobriety to really that whole early foundation of being in recovery. These people, they lived this program, and it made such a difference. um, and you were at the beginning of the call, or at the beginning of the podcast here, you were talking about the community and all the different aspects of it. And one of the things that I learned early on in this program is, there's everybody from people who dwell under a bridge to very high-powered attorneys and actual lawmakers, judges, you name it. This disease has absolutely no limits or bounds on who it infects. Um, like I said, I came from the middle class home. Um, my oldest sister, she was in the program for 2 years before I got there, and in fact, I didn't know she was in the program. I'd kind of disconnected from my family at that point. Um, so she was like 2 years ahead of me, and amusingly, she was going to the same place I was, and we discovered that about a month into it. We ran into each other at a meeting. It was hilarious. Um, and she she went from she was one of the under the bridge dwellers when in her early using, and she had, over the course of her sobriety, built an incredible business, her as a private business, and was making really good money. I mean, she was actually really good at it. And in my 8th year, I guess it was, of sobriety, she relapsed, and she met a guy, and they got married, and he was an addict as well, and they started using. And anyway, she was in Gwinnett on Ross Road, which is just outside of Snellville, and she was going around a curve, and the foot pedal on her motorcycle caught the pavement. She had leaned in too far, and she was drunk, and she lost control and went up underneath an Isuzu Trooper, um, killed her. My parents, I've heard this phrase before. My mom used to say it all the time: a parent should never have to bury a child. This disease took my oldest sister. She I went to the funeral. I'd never been to a close family member's funeral before, and I didn't know how to react. When you're an alcoholic, and especially through your formative years as being a teenager, you don't develop the same sense of emotional stability, emotional growth, emotional, whatever you want to call it. I'm by no means, in that kind of world, but I didn't know how to cry. I didn't know how to do these things. And I showed up at the funeral, and there were 200 people there from AA that came. She had relapsed. It didn't matter to them. She was family, and they took care of her. Um, so anyway, the kid that ran over her was 16 years old, and he had just gotten his driver's license. And my parents were like, "This wasn't your fault," having the whole conversation with him. And he went through some troubled times. My uncle was a psychiatrist and was actually treating him for depression after the accident. And 2 years later, after the accident, he committed suicide. He had never had a drink in his life, and the point is this disease kills people who have never even tried it before. They it impacts so many different aspects of our community. You know, we see the damage that it does to our families. We see that. This kid had never met us, didn't know us, and ended up committing suicide over somebody that he had never even met in his entire life for something that wasn't even his fault. So finding hope, finding it was difficult for me right after that. But what that's done for me personally, this has been one of those things that on those, and by the way, I'm 30 years in the program, and yes, I still think about drinking occasionally. So everybody just needs to get over it. On those rare times when I do end up thinking about, wow, just half a glass of scotch, what could it hurt? I remember my sister, and I remember what it did. And if her death had to have a purpose, I would think that would be it. It's one of the things that's kept me sober. And what difference does David Breedlove being sober make? Well, it's good for my family and for my kids. Well, my cousin Jeff, he's involved in the program. He works for the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. Excuse me.
The official Jeff Breedlove.
Well,
Yes.
I say this because while I've never really been embarrassed, and I've never lied about being an alcoholic. Just people don't ask you. It's funny. I don't go around advertising the fact that I'm an alcoholic. Um, and Jeff, I guess it was about 2 years ago, he took me out to the woodshed. I mean, he beat me good about one of the things that Jamie hasn't told you yet is, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Yes, absolutely. I am a business analyst. I am a Six Sigma process. I do statistical process analysis. That's my living. But what she hasn't told you is I'm also an elected official, and I am what I hate when he calls me this. You're a community leader. Please don't do that. Don't call me that. I'm a school board member. Okay. So, and Jeff, the reason Jeff took me out to the woodshed was because he said, you are in a unique position of being both an addict and alcoholic and a community leader, a person in long-term recovery and a community leader. And for you to not use your voice to help other people through this program, and the things that need to happen in our community is almost criminal. And he used a few other choice words. I won't say what it is. But what it boiled down
It's a family show.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
family show,
exactly.
Dave.
So I ran for office. In 2000, it was 2007. So the election was 2008. And the reason I actually did I'm not a politician, clearly, and there were some events that happened in my community, and I love Walton. Walton, my family's been here for an exceptionally long time, into the 1800s, and I love this place. And when I found out some of the things that were going on in my community, in the schools, my wife was like, "Well, you need to get involved," and I was like, "Well, I'm on the PTO and I go to the school." No, no, you need to do something bigger. And Jeff has always been kind of in the political realm. He's the political side of the family. He's like, "You need to run for office," and I was like, "I'm not running for office. I don't know what you're talking about." So anyway, I ended up running, and I won. And I, for the first 8 years I was on the school board, we did a lot of good stuff. Okay, I don't want anybody to think that I haven't been working my tail off, because I have. When I came on, the schools, the graduation rates were really low. There was no technology in our schools at all. And I mean, it was just your typical small country school district that seemed to be plagued with all sorts of problems. And I became friends with my fellow board members. And I want to stop right here for just a second. And this is where I'm going to insert my little political statement, not political, legal statement that says, I am not speaking for the Walton County School Board. I am not the chairman of the school board right now, and I am just a voice in a chorus. So please don't take this as anybody other than David Breedlove just sitting here talking to you. Okay. Okay. We have to do that because we are the only constitutional office that is legislated to by another constitutional office. I don't know if you know that. The Georgia General Assembly actually dictates to us what we do all day. Yeah, I know. You sit there and go, well, then why are you even elected? So that they can go, oh no, it's your school board's fault. Go talk to them. I'm kidding. I love our legislature. But anyway, so I got on the school board and I was, we made a lot of changes early on in the first few years. Not me, the board made a lot of changes early on, and they were good changes. I mean, we were making some serious progress. And this, in this last election, in this most recent one, one of my objectives in the election, and I went to market with this strategy was. That I want colleges to come after our students. I am sick and tired of hearing about students having to chase down colleges to go. So I want to shift that. I want it to be 180 degrees. I want colleges chasing Walton County students. That was great. It's a strategy that's worked well, and I'm still formulating on how we can get there with the board. And by the way, my board is awesome. We've won 6 awards for exceptional board. Yeah, we're really good. There were some events in my community very recently where it's almost like the way drugs are being distributed changed. Vaping is a perfect example. The whole concept of vaping is what in the last 8 years. I mean, it's even completely new, or at least the way that it's being presented in the market it is now. And so the way that we handle students and vaping it was strange because at first they were being treated like cigarettes, and now with the advent of all kinds of drugs just showing up in God only knows what your kids are vaping anymore. I felt like my focus had to shift. This is difficult for me to put in words. Schools are there to educate your kids. We're not real estate companies. We shouldn't hold a bunch of properties. We're not a museum building out a school that was historical, whatever. That's the venue of somebody else. They need to take care of that. That is their purview. Mine is to educate kids. But I can't have a kid for 180 days, 7 and 8 hours a day, and not think that I'm going to have some kind of influence on them from a personality standpoint. It would be great if it were just, here's your education material, learn this, but that's not the reality of the world that we live in. Teachers have a huge impact on kids, just their very presence and how they carry themselves. Back when I started talking, I told you that when I started drinking in middle school and high school, not once did a teacher ever say anything to me about, are you drunk? Are you Are you okay? There was none of that. They were incredibly disengaged. And that still goes on today. It's probably not to the extent, not what I wasn't a troublemaker. I wasn't, a rabble rouser. It was just, there's no way they couldn't have known. It's not possible. So I'm talking to some of my friends now who are educators, and some of my friends now who are board members who were educators. They don't know what to say. They have no concept of even there. It's zeros and ones. It's yes and no. It's I ignore you or I send you to the principal, and there is nothing in between. And sending them to the principal isn't the solution. Um,
So, what do
I,
you think would be a solution to that?
so this is where my board and I are at right now. This is exactly where we're at. So I told you I'm a statistical process analyst. One of the things that that we do, we review processes, find ways to measure them, and if you can stabilize a process, good or bad, doesn't matter. If you can stabilize the process, then you can push change. Okay. I can always come up with improvements, but if your process is doing this all the time, you'll never affect any change. And this is kind of where we're at, or we have been. So what we did was we did a review of the surrounding counties around us and several counties in the metro and further south. Okay. And the questions were posed about how do you treat kids um, who are caught using drugs? How do you treat them if you think that they have an addiction problem? How do you treat, and it was a series of questions that we had asked these other places. The good news is Walton is basically doing pretty much what all of the other districts are doing. Okay. So we're not some outlier here on the list. We are doing what everybody else is doing. To some extent, our hands are tied because the legislature has these set of rules that they put down to us. And as I said, we're actually legislated to by them, though we do have some flexibility. Um, there's we have we have a code of conduct. Okay, this thing is not 2 pages long. Okay, this thing is 50, 60 pages long. Kids have to sign it, parents have to. It's just crazy. In there, it calls out what's going to happen if you are caught with cigarettes, if you are caught with alcohol, if you are caught with drugs. I am not an advocate for legalizing marijuana. Please do not take this next statement as that. This is not where I'm going. But at the end of the day, if you are caught with a joint or you are caught with 3 pounds of cocaine, I'm going to treat you exactly the same way. There is no distinction, none whatsoever. Drugs are drugs, drugs are bad, get out of my school. It's that simple. And it's like, wow, that you haven't even begun to scratch the surface on why are these kids doing drugs? Okay, it's not the school's job to do that. That's mom and dad's job. I back up to my statement a minute ago. I've got your kid 180 days for 8 hours a day. Your problem is now my problem, and if you and this is where my board is at right now. Okay. Okay, Breedlove, what do you want me to do? I caught him with a joint. This is the third time I've caught him with a joint. Maybe he has a drug problem. Maybe he's not just the kid who can smoke a joint and walk away. Wow, how amazing would that be? That's not going to happen. She's laughing. That's not going to happen. I can never do that. I'm
I
addicted to
can't either.
anything. Yeah, I'm addicted to anything I ever tried twice. It's just that here as he picks up his cup of coffee and goes,
Exactly. Coffee. I mean, you name it. I gotta watch myself on pre-workout before the gym. Like, make sure I'm not thinking about that too much. Yes.
so where we're at right now is okay. Well, what would you do any differently? Well, in the first place, I probably wouldn't put him in alternative school yet. I am not saying that drug addicts and alcoholics should get any kind of special treatment. The path to that punishment, though, is what I think should be different, because I I think that we have an opportunity for recovery. For I am living proof that you can go for 30 years without a drink. I Here I am, right here. Okay. I am not the perfect husband, and I'm not the perfect father, and I'm not the perfect community member. But what I am not is in jail. What I am not is in a hospital, detoxing, again, or any of that. I am a productive member of society. And if you don't believe me, look at my tax bill because I pay a lot of taxes. I am a productive member of society. And I think that we can turn kids around earlier than what we're doing now. You don't have to be 24. You don't have to be 34, 44, 50 before you find recovery. And if you think that doesn't happen, come to my meeting. There are people who walk in that door every single day who are 50 years old and have never known a sober day in their adult life. It happens. And we can stop it early. There's such an opportunity. Now, you keep using, fine, off to alt school you go. I get it. You in the justice system, they've got their thing. They're going to do their thing. But at the very least, I don't have to, dole out what is it, $5,000 worth of punishment for a 50-buck crime. I can find these people and help and treat them. How do we go about doing that? And this is again where my board's at. I don't know. So what I want to do though is not, I don't want, what I don't want is the board to tell the superintendent to put together information who calls in principals and teachers and they talk about what to do. That is, we've been doing it this way for 50 years. And guess what? Let's do it for 50 more.
You're calling on the wrong people, though. The
Yeah.
people they need to call on are the ones who have overcame, the ones who
Yeah.
are the living proof, the ones who are using their voice and saying, hey, I did this and
Yes,
you can do it too.
exactly. I want doctors in there. I want psychiatrists in there. I want counselors in there, teachers, principals. Um, I want people from the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, not Jeff, somebody else. No, I'm kidding. um, People who are addiction counselors, and I want them to talk to the board and tell the board, look, this is what needs to happen, and let us make an educated decision about how to treat these kids, and I don't mean treat them as an alcohol, treat them as in behaviorally treat them. Do we need to send them to a recovery program? Do we need to, maybe, you know what, maybe the best path is jail. I don't know. But what I can tell you is at this moment in time, I don't have enough information to make that decision. That's what I'm saying right now. I can't believe that continuing to do what we're doing now is going to get us any different results than what we're getting today, because it's not. And all we're going to do is stack up the jails, stack up the prisons, and when they come out, they're not going to be employable. They're not going to be. They're going to. It just continues the cycle. It just continues the cycle. Again, I'm not saying special treatment. I am saying different treatment. I'm saying that the person who's selling drugs to make money is different than the person who's selling drugs to get money to buy more drugs. It's a different mindset. It's a different mentality. And if you can cut off that need for the drug, they won't need to sell it to make money. They can go get a regular job. There are people who are way smarter than me that can help with formulating this plan and coming up with a better way to approach the community, to approach families, to approach the kids, to approach the justice system, the legislature, and all these other people. There are people that are way smarter about this. And if everybody would just step back and say, people like me, if we would just step back and say, I don't know enough, let me find out, rather than saying, I've got a plan, and pushing forward, we might be able to affect change in our community. And that has become my mission. I don't want to say it that way, but that's become my mission. It's not all I talk about at board meetings. We still have budgets and all this other stuff. But when I can get their attention for just a minute, I bring this topic back up because it is so important. these families are struggling with kids. They don't understand. Some parents get it, some parents don't. It's not a judgment on them. I am the last person to say that I would never have had a drink if my parents had fill in the blank. It does. It had nothing to do with my parents. Nothing. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. It is me. It's my problem. I'm the only one that can fix it. And by the way, I can't fix it. I have to go see some people over there that can help me fix it. And I kind of feel the same way about where we're at in society today. Just we need to bring about change, but I don't know that anybody is presenting anything that's a viable solution that is sustainable for any given period of time.
Right. And it's like, because you really, nobody knows the solution of how to get through that fire unless you've already walked through
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And shutting those people out isn't going to solve the problem. I never went through our legal system. Okay, so the whole drug court and all this other stuff. All of my information on that is anecdotal from my meetings. I just hear other people that have gone through it. I was lucky. I didn't have those brushes with the law. But what I can tell you is, yes, it does put fear in people. Yes, it does. I mean, if your goal is to scare somebody, then your process is working because they're terrified. But remember, I don't see them until they've been in the program for a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months. And now the justice system is going to take away whatever they built in the last week, month, 2 months. And again, I'm not beating on the justice system either. It is what it is, and it can only move as fast as it can move. But I think the justice system could avail itself of some changes as well. I know schools can. They absolutely need to. We are stuck in the 50s when it comes to this, or 60s. Actually probably closer to the 70s. And making these changes in the schools, I think, will spill out and into the family and the home life, and maybe break that cycle. Because again, nobody has them as long as we do. Even when they're home, they're asleep most of the time. So, why would we not avail ourselves of making changes at the school that we can actually influence it and bring about some positive change in society? So I'm sorry, you just asked me, tell me about yourself. Here I am, 30 minutes later, still
No,
rambling.
you brought up some really amazing points, and I thank you so much for that. And you're right, it's like we know that there is a need. We know there is a need for change.
Yes.
We know, I mean, I can say for myself, I did not come into recovery. Let's see, I'll have 6 years. I'm 40. So I didn't come into recovery till I was 34. How amazing would it have been if I would have heard about recovery when I was in middle school, when I was in high school? What a different life that I would have had. So I definitely agree with you 100% that there is a need for that. And there are enough of us now in the recovery community throughout this great state of Georgia who is just marching and leading the way in our recovery mission, that there are people who can step in, and I believe that for the schools. I believe that for the justice systems as well. Everybody, we just have to work together, and we have to be open-minded to new solutions.
Yes.
And, maybe the idea of just locking people away is not the way to go anymore. Maybe we need to look at, why does this person get out and keep going back in? Like,
exactly.
what happened? Not just like they keep robbing stores or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, why do they keep doing that? What is the need they're trying to fill? What are they trying to accomplish? What is the root here, So, and it does take a little bit of digging. It's not as easy as just locking people up, because that's a pretty easy solution. Like, okay, there you go. Bye. That's it. Now I don't have to deal with you anymore. when we put in place these kind of programs and things that help rehabilitate people and
Mhm.
are recovery based, that's a little bit more work, and it's a little bit more paperwork too, right?
Oh yeah.
Who wants to do that, right? And it probably might cost a little bit more in the budget in the beginning, but long term it is the best outcome for everyone.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I couldn't agree more. And if Jeff can really bore you with some statistics, but the this is no longer a 1% of the population problem.
Right.
This is, I mean, these are significant numbers. These are double digit percentages of the population that are addicts and alcoholics. And not enough are in recovery, but it my point is, to your point, locking them up isn't, you don't have enough jail space. There's not enough space to lock them away. There's just not. There's too many of us out there. We need some solution that moves them from that realm over into the sobriety realm, the realm of recovery and hope, because there is hope. There really is. And I am not saying we can save them all. I don't live in that little fantasy land. I know that the odds of somebody staying in long-term recovery is low. Um, I bury people every single year. Um, and I'm not talking about one or two people. I go to a dozen plus funerals every single year of people who have gone back out. And it's sad, but that doesn't relieve us of the need or the responsibility of even trying. We have to try.
And it's
Um,
everybody's responsibility. In the beginning of your story, you were talking about, you went to the church and talked to somebody at the church, and he very nicely, but dropped you off. I can't help you,
yeah,
you know? And I can't imagine that feeling in your heart, already feeling so hopeless
yeah,
as it was.
yeah.
And then having somebody say, I can't help you. This is not my problem.
And
Well, it is. It's
yeah,
all of our problems.
exactly. What blew me away was these were people that dealt with people that I thought were in far worse shape than I was, and here they are not being able to help little old me. Turns out it was the best thing. I mean, I'm not kidding. But the path to spirituality and all the other stuff that is great in my life today all started on September 11th of 1991. And I can't imagine my life being any different. Although if I closed my eyes, I'm sure I could imagine my life much different. Um, I'm not sure that I would want it any different than what it is today. So
What a
anyway,
blessing. Well, thank you so much, David. David Breedlove, thank you so much for your transparency, for coming on and speaking on Recovery Inspired Hope for this special Walton County Recovery Initiative. And we will see you guys next time. Make sure you guys subscribe to Jamietall on YouTube. And hopefully we will have another, a follow up with some stuff about what we've gotten accomplished since we put it on the table here. Like, hey, here is the issue, and now we are ready to move forward into the solution. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time on Recovery Inspired Hope.